Hi, welcome to a module on plagiarism brought to you by the Bell Library and the TAMUCC Writing Center. In this brief video, we are going to discuss what exactly is plagiarism and why it's so important to know what plagiarism is. So let's start off simple. What is plagiarism? It is the practice of using or misusing work or ideas of another person without giving due credit. That means if you have taken someone else's language, ideas, or other original, not knowledge material, and used it for your own writings without giving them credit. This applies to texts, images, manuscripts, and work of other student writers published both in print or online. So it comes down to a simple statement. If you didn't write it, you probably should cite it. So I guess a question that needs to be answered now is, how do you plagiarize a source? When you are taught to write, you are asked to include texts in your research. This means those texts need to be acknowledged in your own paper. We do this through the use of documentation styles. Many of you have heard of different styles of documentation, such as MLA, APA, Chicago, and others. By using these formatted documentation styles, you can avoid plagiarism and give credit where credit is due. So, the incorrect documentation of a quotation or source material would be considered plagiarism. Now you can see an example of citation on this slide. If you'll look at the first bullet point, at the end of the sentence, you'll see a parenthetical citation. That is how I am giving credit to the authors who wrote this particular sentence. Another way that you may end up plagiarizing is that you've tried to cite it, but didn't follow the formatted documentation style. That's a big one. That's the one that happens most often. So if you are writing a sentence that says, Smith wrote in his paper that, fill in the quotation here, that is still not a correct citation. You are letting the reader know that somebody else wrote this material, but you are not giving the correctly formatted citation. So then how do you know what to cite? If it's general information or common knowledge, you probably don't have to cite that. Now, what is considered common knowledge? That is the more intricate question. Common knowledge is going to differ between your audiences. So depending on who you're speaking to or writing to, that is going to define what is common knowledge. If I am talking to a group of athletes who are also basketball players, and I talk about making a jump shot, I don't have to define what that is. They know what a jump shot is. But if I am talking to a group of business majors about a jump shot, well, perhaps a few of them might have played basketball in a former life and know what the jump shot is, but just to be safe, I will probably define what it is and then cite where I got that definition. So, when writing, considering your audience is going to be where you find the most credible source of what could be considered common knowledge. Again, if it's something that has to do with a specific definition, you might want to cite it just in case. So what information must be cited pretty much every time? Well, if information is not widely known, so if it's something that you yourself had to research to know this, and you know that you have to explain it to multiple people, you need to cite it. Any conclusions that are made by others. So that means if you are using somebody else's documentation to prove why a certain event happened, you must cite that conclusion from that author. If you are relaying somebody else's research, you must cite that research. Images, illustrations, figures, photos, all of those things need to be cited, even your own photos, because it could look like you're plagiarizing if you don't notify the reader where the information comes from. Statistics or formulas. Good rule of thumb, if it deals with numbers, it needs to be cited. Do I have to tell my group of basketball players that Shaquille O'Neal is tall? No, I don't need to cite that. That is super obvious. Do I need to cite that he is 6'10"? Absolutely, because that is a specific statistic and they need to know where I got that information. And then, of course, direct quotations and paraphrasing. So anytime you are pulling information directly from a source, whether you use that source's words or not, you must indicate where that statement came from. So why does any of this matter? Your participation and enrollment in your classes, school activities, etc., are dictated by the Student Code of Conduct as outlined by TAMU-CC. By the simple act of taking classes with this college, you have already agreed to follow this Code of Conduct. Article 3 shows that some of the violations of the Student Code of Conduct can include, but are not limited to, cheating, plagiarism, multiple submissions, another form of plagiarism, complicity in plagiarism, fabrication, falsification, and misrepresentation. So, if you have committed or attempted to commit a violation of the Student Code of Conduct, you are subjected to the disciplinary sanctions outlined in Article 7. So that is why plagiarism matters. Not just because you might get a 0 on an assignment, not just that you might fail a class, but your credibility is on the line. Your attendance at this university is on the line. Make sure that you don't give your professors or any of your future employers a reason to question your materials. For further information on plagiarism, please feel free to use any of the links below this video, including links to the Writing Center and the Bell Library, in which you will find a wealth of information and people who can help you avoid plagiarism in the future. We'll see you in the next module.